Home sellers, a low appraisal is like a giant kick in the junk from the real estate gods. After all, you've spent all these hours and all this energy prepping and marketing and showing your home, and you finally get a deal together and you make it through inspections by some miracle unscathed. And then here comes the appraiser who rains on your parade and just ruins a perfectly good party. Well, I've sold over 2,500 homes, roughly 50 times more than the average realtor. And today, for the first time ever in public, I'm going to share our patented, well, should be patented Low Appraisal Playbook. This thing has been developed and tested in the field, and it works. So you're going to hear exactly how we fight back, how we work with everyone involved to save the deal. This is how we do it. So stick around and we'll show you how to keep the deal alive and keep your money from floating away. All right, here we go. Welcome to Talking Realty, the podcast for home sellers who want to make more money, save time, and avoid headaches. I'm Glen Whitten, founder of the Ohio Property Group, where we do all the same things as traditional realtors, but instead of charging a giant 6% commission, we charge a low flat fee. So you keep more money and you get much better results. Check out all the free seller tools at talkingrealty.com. And if you like the show, hit that subscribe button. Now, let's get to it. Home sellers, as we head into spring and the meat of the selling season, we're starting to see more and more bidding wars. And when that happens, sometimes offers float up higher than what recent sales in the area can support, meaning we risk having a low appraisal, which is why we're here today. So I've covered how to negotiate around that, like how to hedge against the low appraisal using appraisal gap coverage, the strength of your buyers, and other terms you can bake into the deal that will protect you. But I'm not going to go there today. Instead, for the first time ever, I'm going to share our closely guarded low appraisal playbook. Seriously, only you, me, and Tasia know about this secret weapon. So this is our exact strategy. This isn't some theory. This isn't something we made up in a classroom somewhere. This is something that got borne out over many, many low appraisals over the last 2.5 decades. And occasionally you stumble across some new wrinkle that makes it even more effective. So it goes into the playbook, it gets tested and tested and tested, and eventually ironclad, we know it works. So this playbook has a lot of miles on it and a lot of success stories. It's our behind the scenes process to help sellers protect the bottom line. After all, that's what we're going for. I'm including the actual checklists, all the scripts, the email templates, everything that we use, because I want you to win. I'm going to be working from pages 83 through 92 of our Ultimate Home Seller Toolkit, which, yes, you can get. It's totally free. You can download it right now and follow along. Just check the show notes or the comments for a link. So to get started, I want to talk about what a low appraisal means and why it actually matters. So at some point, somebody is going to tell you, remember, you've rolled along. You're probably 2 or 3 weeks into this deal, and the buyer has paid for and received an appraisal. So I'm not going to go deep on how an appraisal works and why we're doing appraisals and all that stuff. We did that in another episode. I'll link to it in the show notes. But at some point, when the appraiser walks through the property, they're going to run back to their house and they're going to do all their research and so forth and come up with their opinion of value for your property. They're going to submit it to the bank, and somebody somewhere is going to say to you one of two things when the appraisal comes back. Either everything's great, or we got some problems. And problems fall into 2 categories with appraisals. One is what they call conditions, meaning you need to put up a handrail, you need to scrape some paint, you need to get a roof certification, something like that. In other words, it's worth what I say it's worth, but I need to verify these things before we can stamp this as approved. Great. Those are pretty easy and usually pretty painless. Get those knocked out, get them done, get the appraiser back out there, or send them photos, or however the deal works, get it taken care of. No. What I'm talking about is this other category of problems called low value. In conventional, in FHA, they're just going to tell you, hey, you've got a low appraisal, and you're going to find out one of 3 ways. Either the lender's going to tell you, or if you're working directly with the buyer, they might tell you, but more than likely, you're going to hear it from the buyer's agent. Buyer usually hears about it first, then they tell their agent, then they give me the good news. All right. In VA lingo, it's called a tidewater alert. So the rest of us just call it a very bad day. But you've got me, so No worries. A low appraisal just simply means that the appraiser doesn't think the property is worth the contract price. It's an opinion. Yes, we know that. It's an opinion, but the bank isn't going to move forward and let the buyer finance more than the appraised value. So there it is. That's your hurdle. But this is a problem for everyone. So unless you have appraisal gap coverage or the buyer just decides to make up the difference in cash, the usual approach, and what almost everyone involved is going to do, is all eyes on you, seller. They're going to want you to lower your price, and then we can all move on. We can just happily head toward closing. Well, maybe you don't feel that way. Maybe you don't feel like giving up all that equity because it comes straight off your bottom line. So before we get too much further, there is a giant note you need to have, is that under no circumstances, at least not in any of the thousands of contracts I've ever reviewed, under no circumstances have I ever seen a seller that had to take the new price. So you always have the option of walking away. Even if you've signed one of those VA or FHA amendments that you think locks you in, it doesn't. If you read them very carefully, what it says is that unless the property appraises for the purchase price, the buyer can walk away or the seller can lower the price. Doesn't mean you have to, just means those are the options. But the point is, you're not doomed to live a life with this horrible, awful appraisal. So today we're going to figure out how to save that deal if that's what you want. The buyer is probably doing cartwheels because they think they just got this huge discount on their dream house. Well, we need to throw a lot of water on that quickly. And you, naturally, your first instinct is probably to go, I don't know, curl up into a ball and cry. I mean, I don't know, but you do have a lot of other options. So let's hit the pause button and let time be one of our many secret weapons. You're going to hear that theme a lot. I want to slow things down. Sellers tend to get very anxious during this period, and I need to let you know the clock effectively stops. When we get a low appraisal, everything stops, and everybody understands that. Title, lender, buyer, buyer's agent, everybody understands this is not a quick fix. So we're going to hit the pause, and we're going to use time as one of our secret weapons. Every day that goes by from the time we get that notice until it's resolved, the buyer is getting no sleep. Like, the agent is definitely not getting any sleep. And the lender, most of them aren't paid a dime until closing. They're not getting any sleep. Nobody's getting paid anything. So here's the cool part. They all want it fixed. Now they're assuming that you're going to roll over, but they don't know that yet. You could walk away. You could fight back. So once you hit the pause button, one of the very first things you should consider is, do you have a backup? Because if you have a backup, I don't even care if it's that good. If it's better than the appraised value, then by all means, give them a heads up that, hey, I might be coming your way. You don't even have to tell them why. You can just tell them, hey, the first deal, buyer's getting cold feet, which is the truth, because if they won't bring you the cash, or you could say the buyer's unable to perform financially, which again is true. If you're demanding full price, contract price, and the buyer literally doesn't have the cash, then they are financially unable to perform. You can stand on that morally, ethically, legally, and in all other ways. You can say that to your backup. So no reason to get too deep into the weeds. So if you have a backup that's better than this deal, not only is that a great fallback position, but we don't need to go there yet, because we can use that as leverage to get the first buyer to do what we want them to do. Because if you have made it through this far, you don't want to start over. Neither do they, but you definitely don't want to start over if you don't have to. So if you can get the same or better deal from your first buyer that you would get from your backup, it's less risky to stick with the first buyer because they're already probably through inspections. They're through all of their financial deep dive that they had to do to get this far. So my first choice is to stick with this one. Plus, it's going to close a lot sooner. You go to the backup, you're going to have to start everything over. New application, new appraisal, which may or may not result any better. And of course, you've got the inspection hurdle, which is baked into most contracts. So you've got a variety of reasons to stick with the first buyer. Try to make this work. But the nice thing is, you've got a lot more leverage when you have a backup plan in place. If your backup buyer, however, is very good, they were just late to the party, because this happens. They come in after you've inked the first deal and, oh my God, this is a great deal. then just give your first buyer an ultimatum. Just go right back to them with this low appraisal and say, look, I know that this is not good for you. However, I've got a backup. So here's the deal. You can either pay me the contract price. I don't care how you work it out. Change lenders, get another appraisal, whatever, not my problem. You can do that, or we can just dissolve this deal and we can all go our merry way and I'll just move on with another buyer. When you show that kind of resolve, first of all, if you're going to do that and you don't have a backup, because I know some of you were thinking that, I hope you are a better poker player than I am. I can't pull off that kind of bluff. It's probably why I don't play poker for real money. But anyway, you can do that. You can go back to your buyer and you can push back. And effectively, that's what we're going to do with this playbook. We're just going to do it in a very specific order, assuming you don't have a backup that's better, that you don't want to start over, that you want to save the deal. Because if you don't want to save the first deal, you can just stop this episode right now, unless you just truly love listening to the sound of my voice, which who could blame you? Let's be honest. So before you drop the bomb, if you're going to go the ultimatum route, because you have such a great backup, before you drop that bomb, do me a favor, double check with your backup, because even if it's been a day or two or a week or two, probably more like 3 weeks since you last heard from them, you want to give them a heads up. Just go to them or their agent, if that's who you're dealing with, and say, look, I'm not entirely sure the first deal is coming unglued, but it's showing there's cracks. Like there's some cracks in the foundation. So we may be showing up. Just checking with you. Are we still good? Wait for that response before you go charging up the hill. Okay, back to your first buyer now. The theme you're going to see running through all the plays in this playbook is that, yes, time, we want time to work, because simmering really does work. But more importantly, I love to operate under the belief that everybody wants the deal to work. I think that if the buyer wanted out, they've had ample opportunity to do so, including when the appraisal came back. They could come to you. If you read your contract very carefully, they actually probably don't have to come to you. They can just say, oh, well, low appraisal, we're out. If they're asking you to lower your price, that at least means they're interested in continuing with you. Maybe you don't like the terms, but this is a good start. We already know the agent and the lender and the title company wants to continue because, as I mentioned before, they don't get paid unless this deal reaches the finish line. So everybody is now fully aligned with your goal, which is let's finish this thing, but you need the terms to be right in order for it to make sense for you to continue. Because if you have a backup, great, you can go there, even if you have to start over. And worst case, you can put this sucker back on the market and try to sell it for more. As I mentioned, you're not stuck with that old appraisal. If you walk away from this deal, unless you're FHA, which I'll cover here in a second, unless you're FHA, that appraisal just goes in the round file. No one ever sees it again. VA logs them, but they have no impact on any future appraisal. So you could get a VA buyer in, have a Tidewater / low appraisal, $50,000 low, go out, kill the deal. A week later, put it back under contract with another VA buyer. That VA appraiser is going to see the old appraisal, but it has no impact. They're not bound to even look at it. They probably will, let's be honest. But they can write a completely different appraisal with new comps because maybe something else is closed that helps you. And VA isn't going to bat an eye. Now, conventional, they don't even see those appraisals. It's just gone. It's not logged anywhere. FHA logs and keeps them for 6 months. That property is now tied to that value. Now, we could get a second FHA appraisal, but that is a long and difficult process. For now, let's just say if your buyer is FHA and you get a low appraisal, you're either going to have to work things out with this FHA buyer or put it back on the market, but you cannot, for the next 6 months, sell it to any other FHA buyer and depend on an appraisal coming in higher, because they're not going to do it. They're just going to keep using that old one for 6 months. It's frustrating, but that's how it is. And as we learned from my episode with Rex Graz from Union Home Mortgage, Rex taught us that if a buyer gets approved for FHA, it's entirely likely they can get approved for another program that's not FHA, maybe conventional, maybe USDA, maybe rural development, maybe who knows. All is not lost. If that buyer wants to continue, they can get a new lender or a new loan program. These are all clubs in your bag if, as I said before, everybody wants the deal to work. If everybody's dug in and says, no, you need to give us this number or we're out, then you have a choice to make. You can either give in to them, the terrorist demands, or you can start over. And I'm not saying either one. Maybe time is more critical to you than the bottom line. In that case, roll on, sailor, roll on. But the reality is most deals with a low appraisal do not die. They don't die right away, at least. They die when the seller gets all anxious or upset and starts making hasty moves, or when the buyer gets, let's just say, overconfident and starts to think that maybe they're in the driver's seat. And because many times they are, well, not today. We're going to stay calm. We're going to play great cards, and we're going to get everybody what they want. But at least we're going to go out swinging. Hey, real quick, if you're thinking about selling, don't do it without my ultimate home selling toolkit. It's totally free. It's packed with the exact contracts, forms, and checklists, all the email templates, every script we use to manage hundreds and hundreds of listings every year. Whether you're for sale by owner or you just want to know what to expect, what's around the corner, this thing is pure gold. You can download your free copy at talkingrealty.com or check the show notes or the comments on YouTube for that link. Seriously, hit pause, go do it now. I'll wait right here. Okay, back to the show. Let's do a quick side quest here. I want to talk about can't versus won't. When I say can't versus won't, let me give you an example. Let's say you want me to lend you $50. Okay. I really have two options. I can say, yes, here's the $50, in which case I'll probably never see you again. Or I can say no. Now there's two ways to say no, fundamentally. I can say that I can't loan it to you. Like I don't have $50 to loan you. Or I could say that I won't loan you $50. Like I have it, I'm just not going to loan it to you. Okay, so there's a big difference between I can't loan you the money because I don't have it versus I won't, meaning I have it, but I don't want to give it to you. The end result, however, is the same. You didn't get the money, but how you feel about me and our relationship is entirely different. Can't, you're much more likely to understand because let's face it, if I asked you for $50 right now, you wouldn't have it either. Same boat. You can understand it. You can relate to it. No hard feelings. You asked, man, I wish I could. I just can't. Great. But if I tell you I have it or you know I have it and I just won't give it to you, won't means I'm a jerk. It means I'm not your friend. Now, I may have a perfectly good reason for not loaning you that $50, but you're not going to hear that. You're going to just hear, no, I won't do it and assume the worst. You're going to get defensive. This is no good for us. When buyers, see, I didn't forget what we were doing here. When buyers hear, I won't lower my price, it's World War III and you're probably not going to win. But when they hear, I can't lower my price, and we'll fill in the gaps on that here in a minute, that is a much different tone. Everybody calms down, the defensiveness goes down, and we truly do get everybody pulling for us at that point. The buyers have to believe you can't lower the price or can't reasonably lower the price because of other factors. And we don't necessarily need to get into them, but we need to paint a picture that's believable where they fully accept that you can't lower the price and not that you won't lower the price. So if they simply think that you won't lower the price, this is going to get much harder. So the very first move you have to make once you've absorbed everything is you need to get emails off to the lender and to the buyer's agent, assuming that there's a buyer's agent involved. And the whole point of these emails is to start the process, stop the clock, and set the tone. With the buyer agent, you're going to express concern and you're going to set the stage for trimming deal costs. This is on page 89 and 90 of the toolkit. With the lender, I'm going to request an appraisal report. I want a copy of it because even though the buyer paid for the appraisal and the seller doesn't usually get a copy of it, the exception is that when there is a low appraisal and they're asking you to lower your price, they need to prove it. I need to see that report. I want to go over it. Remember, we're buying time. I got to ask them for a copy of it. Presumably they understand I'm going to need to go over it. I've now bought time. The other thing you want to ask them for when you're requesting a copy of the appraisal, and I want you to do this directly with the lender, not with the buyer agent. The buyer agent may very well send you a copy, but the other reason I want you to approach the lender directly is because in addition to a copy of the appraisal, I want to know what are the steps for appealing this. In other words, how do I get the steps for pushing back and saying, I don't think that the appraisal is correct? Most lenders don't run into this every day. So it's going to maybe take them a day or two to gather up the report. They probably have it right there, but the steps for appealing it may take a little bit longer for them to get. And that's great. The longer they take, the more this strategy works. But the overall theme here is we're appealing to cooperation. We are trying to avoid confrontation. So we're going to be as pleasant and conciliatory as possible. Just let people, man, this is really unfortunate. I wanted this deal to work, but ooh, I'm not sure we can make it work. That's a lot different than screw you, I'm not dropping my price. You see the difference, I'm sure. Now, when you're in the moment and you're the seller screaming, screw you, I'm not dropping the price, you can't see that, but the rest of the world can. So I need you to take yourself out of the situation and go through it as I'm describing. Because if you're in this right now, if you're watching this video because you're sitting there staring at a low appraisal, your emotions are completely off the chart. And truth number 3, emotions are expensive. Did a whole podcast on that. Okay, so get the appraisal. They're going to email it to you. They're going to send you the appeals process. You're going to do that. I would enlist the help of the other side as well. Get the buyer's camp involved in this. If they want 5 comps or 3 comps or a justification, have them send theirs as well. They can send them all to you and you can send them in, or they can send them in separately, whatever, but you're the one who needs to deliver at least one set of comps and a narrative on what is wrong, because you need to start the appeals process. It typically takes days, if not weeks, because they have to go back to the appraiser. They got to go back to the underwriter. All of this is good for you. I know you want to close and you're eager to get this in the rearview mirror. And frankly, if time is not on your side, this might not be the path for you. But the alternative is eating this giant pile of garbage and lowering your price, or starting over, which is going to take even more time. So I'm assuming you're in the boat with me. When you get the appraisal report, I need you, home seller, to comb through every page of it. I know it is like reading a tax return. These are very dry documents. That's because they were designed by the government. At least that's my opinion. Anyway, I want you to go through it and look for mistakes, not only with your home, but with the comps. I'm assuming you know a little something about these comps because they're right down the street from you, most of them. If you don't, hop on the auditor's website, hop on the MLS, look on Zillow, look on Realtor.com. There are no secrets today. If that house just sold, there are interior photos. There's probably a long description / love story about it. There are plenty of data points that you could use. Double check it because it's worth the time. About 1 in 20 appraisals have material errors, mistakes, square footage, age, bedroom problems, garage problems, lot size problems. Look for all the things that are going to directly affect value and make sure that they got it 100% correct. Because if they didn't, now you have tangible evidence that this appraisal is wrong. Very good for your case. Because let's be honest, it's an opinion. And most people think very highly of their opinion. Appraisers are not immune from that feeling. They're human. They feel like, hey, I did a good job. This is my opinion of value. Just because a homeowner doesn't like it doesn't mean I'm going to turn around and say, oh yeah, you know what, you're right. 99% of these go nowhere. You submit the appeal with all of your beautiful justification, and 2 weeks from now, they're just going to be like, yeah, whatever. No, sorry, we're not changing it. Now, if you find a material issue, your odds go up that you're going to be in that 1 out of 100 that gets overturned, that gets a new value. You may not get all of what you were asking for, but you will get some of it. And I'll give you more factors to include that will help your cause. The other thing you look for are better comps. So let's assume you go through the report, you don't find any errors, but you see some pretty stinky comps. Maybe they're closer, but they're not as good. There are probably better ones available that you can then include. New comps are a bit tricky because technically speaking, an appraisal is an opinion of value on the day of the walkthrough. So if your comp closed afterwards, I would throw it in, but I would also understand that it's probably not going to carry a lot of sway because it happened after. I know, doesn't make any sense, but that's how the cookie crumbles in the appraiser world. Go back, pull new comps. Go to Realtor.com, go to the MLS, help pay a realtor to do it for you. If you're straight up for sale by owner, go find a flat fee person like me. And if you're in Ohio, maybe call me, I don't know, and say, hey, listen, I'm fighting a low appraisal here. can you get me comps for my property? Even if you never listed with me, we have that service. We can do that for you. It's called a broker market opinion. It's in our e-store. You can go get it. You can also book a consult with me if you want to do that, and I will walk you through this. However, somehow get your hands on some comps, and I don't care if you have to send 20, go back a year, go back 2 years, go out a mile, 2 miles, get me 10 or 20 comps that absolutely scream your value, your contract value is correct. Another thing you can mention, if you were in a bidding war, if you had multiple offers, you probably have electronic copies of those offers. Go ahead, put them in the packet, submit them with the appeal. There's no rule that says you can't submit stuff they didn't ask for. You're trying to win an argument here, which means bury them in argument. Give them all the comps, give them a narrative. I love this. A letter from you or your agent stating why you believe this is true, that your house is worth the contract price. Number one, there's the old what a buyer will pay for it is absolutely market value. We know that. However, if you had a bidding war, you had multiple offers at or near the price that you eventually sold it for, you need to include that. We get offers sometimes that are higher than what we ended up selling for, but because of either a relationship with the buyer or strength of the borrower's financing, or who knows, maybe they could close sooner. But the point is, you could have actually sold it for more. Put that in your narrative. Now, I would take this narrative, write it out, stream of consciousness, get all your points out, then do yourself a favor, run over to my good friend ChatGPT, which is free, and say, hey, Chat, that's me typing, by the way, in case you're wondering what that sound is. If you're on video, you can kind of see me doing it. I'm not really typing, but anyway. Hey, Chat, this is Glenn. I'm in the middle of a low appraisal situation, and the bank has asked for an appeal. So I've got all my comps, I've got all my stuff, but here's a letter I wrote to justify it. Can you please help me make it more persuasive? Can you please take out the curse words? Can you please take out any emotion that's going to reflect negatively and help me win this argument? And Chat is going to be all in with you. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, that's so terrible. I'm sorry to hear that. Here we go. And they're going to give you probably a version you don't want, but much closer to what you need. Go through, make it sound a little more like yourself. Keep most of the curse words out of it. It's easy to write you off as a flake if you just go crazy in the narrative. So don't fall into that. All right. So get your packet done. Include how many offers, especially if it was more than 2 mentioned. I had 7 offers. I had 7 offers, and 5 of them were above list price, and 2 of them were above what I actually sold it for. That is golden. And you can, like I said, you can include copies of the offer. That is just fantastic stuff because it speaks to the situation that clearly was missed by the appraiser. The other thing that you can include is how long was it on the market? I put it on, and within 72 hours, I had 45 showings and I had 7 offers. That stuff will carry some weight. It might not get you over the hump, but it lets everybody involved know that this house is freaking worth what it sold for. Wrap it all up in a bow and submit it back to the lender. So here's the bad news, is that most of the appeals don't work. As I told you, 99 of 100 appeals, you're not going to get anywhere. However, they do buy time, and they give me a chance to work the rest of my playbook with the buyer camp, which is where the real meat of this is. When the buyer's camp sees you fighting this hard to get this value, naturally they're going to try to join in. And even though it works against what they want, which is the lower number, it also helps avoid the worst case, which is the deal dying. And then the buyer and the lender and the title company, we all got to go look for new clients and new deals because this one's not going anywhere. All right, so let's bring it home that this deal could die. So you've played your can't versus won't card. You've now worked over the appraisal. You've now sent in comps with a beautiful narrative and told them about all your multiple offers. So you've done all you can do on that front right now. In the meantime, the ground is getting softer and softer. The buyer's lost a few nights of sleep. The agent has lost a few nights of sleep, wondering where their next commission is going to come from. And those are the two you really need in. The lender also has a part to play, but it's less likely that they're going to play it. So I'll explain that here in a second. So while we're waiting on the appeal, you've submitted it now, we've got some time. This is the time to go to work on the buyer, the agent, and the lender. We need them to start cutting costs. So every deal starts with a top line. Let's say you sold it for 500,000. You're not going to walk away with $500,000 at closing. We already know that. The sale price might be 500,000, but you're going to get somewhere between 400 and 450. I don't know how your deal was structured. If you worked with me, it's going to be a lot closer to 500,000 than if you work with somebody else. Shameless plug there. Sorry about that. But anyway, when deals are put on paper, there should be some sort of net sheet involved. And that net sheet includes all kinds of things. Seller concessions. So if the buyer wants $5,000 back to help cut down on their closing costs, that might be in the deal. That comes right off of the 500,000. So now you're at 495. This agent probably wants some sort of commission from you and or the buyer. Well, that's in there. Presumably, if the buyer agent takes less of a commission, your net goes up. We need to get you back to that 450 number, or as close to it as we possibly can. We want to preserve every dollar of your net, and we don't care about the top line. So we're going to trim all that $50,000 in fat as much as we possibly can. If there's a home warranty, that's an easy cut, $500 to $1,000 right out of there. Just tell the buyer, hey, look, it was nice at 500 grand, but at this price, I can't give you that. So sorry. We need to reduce any tax prorations or title insurance costs, anything we can do. Feel free to get the title company involved because they've got some expenses on the line too. So now most title insurance rates are set by the state, at least they are in Ohio. So there's not much you can do about the title insurance rate, but you can maybe designate who pays for it. Maybe the buyer can take on more of a portion, because in some of our markets, the seller is expected to pay for the entire title insurance policy. I'm not talking about the lender title insurance, but the actual owner's title insurance. So maybe we can shift the amount or who pays what on the title insurance. Tax prorations are typically a huge number, several $1,000s on almost every property. And that is you fronting them the cash that they're going to need when the tax bill shows up for the time you own the property. Because in Ohio, taxes are in arrears. You don't get the bill for, say, 2024 in half, like they do first half and second half. You don't get the bill for the 2024 first half, January through June, until well into 2025. Well, if you sold in October of 2024, you're going to be long gone when that bill shows up. So most oftentimes at closing, the title company will collect the estimated amount of taxes for the period of time you own the property that has not been billed yet. Sorry if that gets confusing. They spend 2 or 3 days on this in real estate school out of the total 3 weeks. That's how confusing this is. But anyway, trust me when I say you can go after those tax prorations. If it's in the deal and it's legal, it's negotiable, right? There's just because the seller almost always pays the property tax prorations doesn't mean that's the way it has to be. We just inked a deal this week. Seller came to me and said, this is what I want. And the buyer said, no problem. I'll pay all the costs to make sure the seller walks away with that number. We made it work. Loan expenses. Almost all loan officers get paid some sort of origination fee. Not all, but most. That origination fee is effectively their commission. Now, they don't get all of it. They probably have to share it with their broker or somehow, some way. But the point is, it's a fee. And if you don't close, that fee could go away. They may tell you they can't negotiate it for one reason or another. Same with the realtor commissions. They may tell you they can't negotiate it, but I'm here to tell you, yes, they can. Because half of a deal that closes is a lot better than all of a deal that never closes. And we don't know what that buyer is going to do, and neither do they. That's the X factor. If this deal dies, that buyer may be so heartbroken, they never look at another property. So we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. But all of these things are swirling around. You're so focused as a seller, you're so focused on, oh my God, I'm getting screwed here, that many times you can't see all of these other pieces that are moving. Everybody else is standing around praying that you don't see what they have involved here. So it's important that we call this out. That's where the templates come in. Make sure you get that home seller toolkit. It's got these templates. It's got these emails in it where I gently and professionally suggest that we may need to look at some of these expenses in order to keep this deal together. So not to beat a dead horse here, but most lenders and agents don't get paid unless this thing closes. They want this deal to close. So in a very, very real way, they are on our side now. So the overall goal here is during these negotiations where you're trying to understand that the price is probably going to come down in all likelihood, and that your job is to save the deal by trimming the fat, that you're protecting your net by shaving costs so that we can keep the deal moving. Every dollar that you save the buyer from the top and yourself from the fat pushes this process closer and closer to the finish line. But before the appeal runs its course, this is the golden time, because you've established now that you can't lower the price. And let's just sidebar real quick. I get that if you had 7 offers and you're $30,000 over the list, it's very tough to sell poverty. But if you're not, let's start there. Let's say it didn't sell for list price. You can push poverty. You can just say, I can't go that low. You don't ever have to explain why. Right? You had a specific net when you signed that deal. The appraisal came in low. Now that net is in jeopardy. The other side needs to understand that you can't go there. Now, if you check the emails and the templates that are included in the seller toolkit, you're going to see how I word this. But the general feeling is, I can't do that. We can't make this deal work unless we all get together and figure out how to trim the fat from this deal. Now, if you're 30,000 over list, the can't comes in because you have other buyers. And they know this because they competed against them. They don't know if they're still around. They don't know the terms of them, and nor is that any of their business. All you need to do is plant the seed based on the strength of my backup offers. I can't go that low. It would make no sense for me to go that low. I'm willing to give a little, but at a certain point, it makes no sense for me to continue with this deal with this low appraisal unless we trim the fat. If we can do that, I'll help you compromise. I'll meet you halfway. I'll meet you somewhere. But after a certain point, I can't do it. It makes no sense. I will move on to a different buyer, which includes sticking that thing back on the market. You sold it once and had 7 buyers. We can do it again. We'll talk about that in a second. But before the appeal runs its course, this is golden time, because you're not asking them to commit, so to speak. What you're saying is, if we lose the appeal, well, unless they listen to my podcast or they've done this several hundred times, they don't know that most appeals don't go anywhere. The agent may have heard that, but they probably don't have any experience. Once they see the level of effort you're putting into the appeal, they've probably never seen anything like that before. And I would guess the lender has never seen a seller put as much effort into the appeal as you just did. So they're all kind of thinking, you know what, maybe this thing will work. Great. That's all I need. I just need a little bit of room to negotiate. So before the appeal runs its course and you get the bad news, this is the time, golden time, because you're only getting agreements from them, from the buyer, from the agent, from the lender, from the title company, to trim the fat if we lose. Okay. You're not saying we're going to lose. You're just saying, hey, if we lose, what are we going to do? It makes the ground much softer for negotiating. Keep track of all the concessions people are willing to make. Now, if they're continuing to put you off and, well, we'll talk about it when the appeal comes back, no bueno. Because when the appeal comes back, it's time to boogie. It's time to get going, and let them know that, hey, we're not on an unlimited clock here. I want to know, if we lose this appeal, what are we going to do? How are we going to work this out? And if they say, forget it, you might as well start making plans to either go to your backup buyer or start whispering this thing out. Start working the Rebound playbook at that point. I'll link to it in the show notes, and make sure that you have access to how we handle rebounding. I just did a whole episode on this not that long ago. If you win, great. Back to business. Life is good. Big scare. We dodged the bullet. We get to keep moving. Fair enough. If we lose, or we only get partially where we're trying to go, so in other words, if the appraisal was $25,000 low, you appealed it, either you're going to get all 25,000, you're going to get none of it, or you're going to get some of it. Every once in a while, we get an appraisal that says, you know what? Yeah, I can probably justify going another 10, 15 higher. So you didn't get all of it. You got some of it. At least now we've got a little more breathing room than we had even before. And with that, with your back channel negotiations, should give you enough movement to put the deal together. All right. It's not perfect, but trust me when I say it's probably better than starting over with another buyer, even a quote unquote better buyer. If you can make this deal work and it's not too horrible, roll on, because after this, if you're through inspections and now you've figured out how to navigate the low appraisal, you're almost home free because title is probably back already. The survey is probably done already. You don't really have any more hurdles. You are now within sight of the finish line. So you have to ask yourself, bird in the hand, is it better for me to start this entire process over with a new buyer, new appraiser, new inspector? Maybe, maybe not. Just depends on how stinky it is. If you do come to some agreement that does not match the original agreement, in other words, you didn't get the price that you wanted, but you did figure out how to make it work, you need to draft an addendum. That's on page 77 of the seller toolkit. It's a very short process. Whatever changes you made, state the changes. You don't have to mention why. You don't have to mention anything. Bullet point 1, price is now to be $475,000. Whoop. 2, commission is now to be blah. Property taxes are now to be short proration. Owner's title insurance will now be paid by the buyer. Whatever. Just state the facts and get everybody to sign it. If you use our addendum, it says right on it, all other terms are as originally agreed. So you're only changing what's on that form. Then you send it out. The lender gets one, the title company gets one, buyer and seller, of course, get one after they sign. Move on. If you've managed to negotiate changes from people and it's affecting their wallet, meaning the buyer, the lender, the title company, or the buyer's agent, take the time to genuinely thank them. You may feel like you were owed it, but trust me, they don't feel like that. They feel like they really gave. And in many ways they did. They could have dug in and said no and killed the deal, but they didn't. And that all benefited you. Yes, they all benefited in many ways, but take the time to genuinely thank them. This is a very emotional process and you're going to come down from it. It's better to have everybody not be bitter and ticked off when it's over. Hey friends, this episode of Talking Realty is brought to you by our friends at Associates Title. This team is shaking things up by focusing on what really matters, which is putting the customer first. So whether you're buying or selling or investing, for sale by owner, working with a realtor, they've got your back with incredible cost savings and the latest technology to streamline the entire process. Their secure online portal, also called Qualia Connect, keeps everyone in the loop, from buyers and sellers to lenders and agents, all while keeping your data safe and communication crystal clear. If you're getting ready to make a move, don't underestimate the importance of having a great title company on your side. Check them out today at associatestitleinc.com or call my friend Ryan Phillips at 614-419-2418. Check the show notes for those links. And don't leave your title company choice to chance, and definitely don't let the buyer or their agent make that choice for you. All right, back to the show. So that's what happens if we win. If we lose the appeal and we can't come to some sort of arrangement with the buyer and all the other parties involved and the deal dies, you need to prepare a mutual release. Pages 75 and 76 in the Home Seller Toolkit. I've prepared one for you, left it in there for you. You can see the exact mutual release that we like to use, and it will definitely serve your purposes. It's free. Enjoy. If there is earnest money involved, the buyer will most likely get it. But if for any other reason you feel wronged, now a low appraisal is not the buyer's fault. I mean, not that I'm taking their side necessarily, but the contract is pretty clear when it comes to earnest money. If the buyer backs out because of inspections or appraisal issues, odds are it's going to go back to them. I doubt that it will automatically go back to them. So there is a bit of, that's why it's called a mutual release and not a unilateral release, is because both parties have to agree. The same is true with the earnest money. But if for any other reason you feel wronged, maybe they did some damage during the inspections and you're trying to work that out, or maybe for whatever reason you felt like there were lots of shenanigans and you should be compensated for that, great. But understand, you can't really sell the property until this deal is wrapped up, meaning we're well past the date of closing. So now we know it's dead, or you have a mutual release. You can't sell that property to somebody else. You still have a primary contract and you can't sell it to more than one person. So kind of keep that in mind. If the buyer agent puts the release together, just fully expect them to give the earnest money to the buyer. The contract might actually dictate that it goes to the buyer. You'll have to RTFC, read the freaking contract, to know for sure. But once it's signed by everyone, send it to the lender, send it to the title company, and then everybody part as friends. Remember, it's a small world out there, so don't burn any bridges if you don't have to. So if the worst happens and the deal looks like it's going to die while you're working on the mutual release, start the whisper campaign. This is in my episode 21, all about rebounding. I talk about this process, who to reach out to, what to say to them, and so forth. We cover all of that in great detail in that episode. So whisper it, talk to your backup buyers, talk to anybody else who made an offer, talk to anybody who showed the property, and then start spreading the word before it's back on the market, because you've got a little bit of urgency there you can work that says, hey, get in on it now because it's going to go back on the market. You don't want to go through what you went through last time. If your buyer's still looking, this is the time. Let me know if they're interested, and let's get them in the pipeline so that they can just take over and we can start with them. And oh, by the way, I have a clean inspection report, or oh, by the way, I have this information that I didn't have the first time, all in that episode. But before you go back on the market, if that's what you end up doing, you can't whisper it out, you can't get it back up, and you have to go back on the market, that's a great time to take a look at maybe refreshing everything. Has it been a while since you took the photos? Was there snow on the ground when you took the photos and now there's green leaves everywhere? So that's kind of thing. Or was it green leaves and now there's snow on the ground? Stuff like that, because people know instantly when they look at the front photo if it's been months and months since it was taken. Not good for you. They're already going to know that it was on and off the market and now it's coming back on. So you're gonna have to answer that question. That's in the Rebound episode. What about the description? Is there anything you need to update there? Maybe during the inspection process, you ended up fixing something that was broken, something that was discovered. Well, you could brag about that now. If you put in a new furnace, fixed a window, if you put in a new stove, whatever you did, brag about it. Put it in the description. Always update your seller disclosures. Even if they didn't change, fill them out again. We do it through DocuSign, so it's relatively easy. We just unlock them, let you go in, make your changes, then you re-sign with a new date. That looks good when you come out fresh, because if I were a buyer, I saw your property go off the market and come back on the market, I would wonder, are those property disclosures, are they up to date? Or did something happen that because if you know about it, you do have to tell them. So no way around that. Okay. Any repairs to feature, any new improvements that you can talk about, let's get all that on the disclosures as well. And if you want, you can do, some MLSs allow it, some don't. You can do a full-blown refresh. Kill the listing and then bring it back with a brand new MLS number as a new listing. Some websites are going to show, of course, that it was on the market, off the market, and came back as a new listing. That's fine. Some MLSs do not allow this. It has to be off the market for a certain number of weeks before you can bring it back with a new MLS number. So mileage may vary, but in the broker notes, because it's going to be pretty obvious that something happened, you need a story. You need something to tell people. So in the case of a low appraisal, nobody's going to know about it, because if it was FHA, when you come back on the market, you're going to exclude FHA. You're just going to take them out as an option. Or if you get an offer that's from an FHA buyer, or you get a question from an agent, hey, will this thing fly FHA? Just say no. Just say no. Well, why not? Lots of reasons. It's not the house either. The seller's just not comfortable with FHA buyers. End of story. You don't have to discuss it any further than that. But blame the financing. Just say if the buyer's financing fell through, because that's exactly what happened. Never say more than you have to. And the appraisal killed the deal is not what you want to be spreading out there, because the next appraiser could feel completely different and probably will. I've always bet. I once tried to bet my Cam Hayward, Pittsburgh Steelers Cam Hayward autographed jersey, that if I could get 3 independent appraisers to appraise the same house on the same day, and they don't know each other and they don't know that all 3 of them are appraising it, I will bet you my Cam Hayward signed jersey that I'll get 3 different numbers back, because it's an opinion. There's no way 3 independent appraisers are going to come up with the exact same number. It just won't happen. So that means the next appraiser is probably going to see it differently. Use the phrase buyer financing issue or buyer financing fell through and keep the momentum going. The other thing you want to do before you rebound this thing, before it goes back on the market, is schedule an open house. I want you to come back on the market with fresh as you can be, and then schedule an open house for the first Saturday after it goes on the market. I like them short. I did a whole episode on open houses as well, and the psychology of how to have a great open house that leads to offers. And one of the secrets is keep it short and keep it early. Early on Saturday, noon to 1, noon to 2 at the very most. Don't do Saturday 2 to 8 and then Sunday noon to 5. Don't do that. Window's too big. Okay. The TLDR of that is that you want to cram as many buyers through in as short a window as possible. And you want it to be early in the weekend cycle. Because if you're too late in the cycle, those buyers may have found other properties they like. They may have had a kid get sick. They may have bought ice cream somewhere and have to go home now. And you were at the bottom of the list because you had so many opportunities to go and they never ended up making it there. So you want to be the first one they schedule before they see anything else. And hopefully they run into a bunch of other buyers thinking the same thing. And truth number 11, nothing motivates a buyer like another buyer, or in this case, a whole bunch of other buyers. If you've got a clean inspection report, or you've got an inspection report that had some stuff on it and then you fixed it all, brag about it. Get that inspection report, get a copy of it, and make sure, even if you have to make this a condition of the mutual release, maybe you don't fight over the earnest money, but you say, yeah, no problem. I'll tell you what, we'll sign this right now, but please send me a PDF of the entire inspection report. If they won't do it, find out who did the inspection, call them up, offer them $100 to reissue the same report to you, because at that point you've bought it and they didn't have to do anything else. Oh, well, that was actually my client. No, I'm your new client. For $100, all you have to do is change the date and send me the report, or come back if you want. It's worth it. Get another inspection, because it's going to be the number one fear that new buyers have is, oh, this thing came on the market, went off the market, came back on the market. Must be something wrong with it. Clear that up, because odds are if you do this correctly, and this is in the Rebound playbook, if you do this correctly, the next buyer probably won't even ask for inspections and you will have avoided the entire mess. You're welcome. If you did do repairs, talk about them not only in the marketing, but with the inspection report, send out a list of what you did. We call it a seller statement. Just put in there bullet points or narrative of what you did. Oh, page 37, item number 4, we fixed that. Okay, great. Make a list of the issues that were in the report and then put right next to them whether you addressed it or not. And if you want to say how, great. So my final thoughts on this whole process is that low appraisals absolutely suck. They do. But they don't have to kill your deal. They don't have to mean starting over. With the right approach, the right strategy, the right timing, the right attitude, you can either keep the deal alive or maybe even come back stronger. If you want copies of anything that I mentioned in this episode, check the show notes or the comments section for a link. Grab the free Home Selling Toolkit. If something I mentioned is not in there, get a hold of me. All right, I am an open book. Just let me know, and either I or someone on our fabulous team will get you what you're looking for. And with that, I'm going to let you get back to your day. Thanks for sticking around. Hopefully you learned a lot today, or at least maybe had a little bit of fun. The Talking Realty podcast is brought to you by the Ohio Property Group, a family-owned company where we sell homes not for 6%, but for a flat fee. Fabulous model. You got a question, a topic, a future guest, somebody you'd like to see on YouTube or hear on the podcast, I want to hear from you. Just head to talkingrealty.com and find a way to say hello to your buddy Glenn. For the Ohio Property Group, this is Glen Whitten signing off. And remember, you can sell it. We can help.